The pool gate slammed open at 6 a.m. again. Marcus watched from his kitchen window as Karen's teenage son and his three friends hauled coolers past the residents and registered guests-only sign. That was the moment he realized this wasn't just about rules anymore. This was about the $847 quarterly assessment every homeowner paid while Karen's extended family treated the community pool like their private water park. He picked up his phone, pulled up the HOA bylaws, and smiled. If she wanted to play games, he'd rewrite the rulebook. Marcus Rivera had lived in Meadowbrook Commons for 6 years. He'd served on the HOA board for 3 of those years, treasurer specifically, which meant he knew exactly where every dollar of their quarterly assessments went. Pool maintenance alone consumed 32% of their annual budget. Chemical treatments, filtration system repairs, insurance, the seasonal pool staff, resurfacing every 5 years, it all added up. Which made it particularly galling when he watched Karen Whitmore's family abuse the system every single weekend. It was Saturday morning, barely past sunrise, and Marcus stood at his kitchen window with his coffee growing cold in his hand. Through the trees separating his property from the community pool area, he could see them clearly. Karen's son Derek, 22, still living at home, was unlocking the pool gate with what had to be Karen's resident key card. Behind him came a parade. Derek's girlfriend, 3 guys Marcus had never seen before, and someone pulling a wagon loaded with cases of beer. Marcus checked his watch. 6:17 a.m. The pool didn't officially open until 8. His phone buzzed. A text from Patricia Chen, the HOA president. "Are you seeing this?" He replied, "Every weekend for 2 months. Meeting Monday night, enough is enough." Marcus set down his coffee and pulled out his tablet, opening the shared document where he'd been tracking incidents. The list had grown long. June 3rd, Derek plus 6 guests, stayed until 11 p.m., pool closes at 9. June 10th, Derek's father Howard plus 8 people, multiple noise complaints. June 17th, Karen's sister's family, 7 people, left trash everywhere. June 24th, Derek plus 4 guests, glass bottles in pool area, prohibited. July 1st, Howard plus large group, grills being used, residents must reserve. The pattern was unmistakable. The Whitmore family treated the community amenities like their personal property, and Karen, whenever confronted, acted like any attempt at enforcement was a personal attack. Marcus remembered last month's board meeting vividly. Patricia had gently mentioned that several residents had complained about excessive guests at the pool. Karen had stood up, her face already flushing red. "Are you targeting my family specifically?" "We're addressing a general concern. This is discrimination. My assessment checks clear just like everyone else's. My family has every right to enjoy the amenities." "Of course," Patricia had said calmly. "But the bylaws specify residents plus 2 guests per household at a time. It's about capacity and fairness to all residents." "So you're counting my guests now. What is this, communist Russia?" The meeting had deteriorated from there. Karen had stormed out, muttering about lawyers and discrimination lawsuits. Nothing had changed. Now, watching another unauthorized early morning pool party set up, Marcus felt something shift in his chest. It wasn't anger exactly. It was the cold clarity of someone who'd had enough. He opened his laptop and started drafting a proposal. Monday night's HOA board meeting took place in the community center's conference room. 7 board members sat around the table. Patricia Chen, president; Marcus, treasurer; Sandra Lopez, secretary; James Wu, at-large; Dorothy Mitchell, at-large; Robert Fleming, vice president; and Thomas Park, at-large. Patricia opened with the agenda, but everyone knew what the real topic was. "The pool situation has become untenable," she began. "We've received 47 written complaints since Memorial Day. 47. Most concern the same family consistently bringing large groups of guests, using amenities during off hours and creating disturbances." "We can't keep ignoring this," Sandra said. "I've had 3 residents tell me they've stopped using the pool because it's too crowded and they feel uncomfortable." Dorothy, the eldest board member at 73, cleared her throat. "Have we tried talking to the Whitmores again?" "Multiple times," Robert said. "Karen treats every conversation like we're persecuting her specifically." "Because she knows exactly what she's doing," Marcus said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. "She's gaming the system and hiding behind accusations of harassment whenever we try to enforce the rules." Patricia nodded. Marcus has prepared a proposal for the board's consideration. Marcus opened his folder and distributed copies of his 3-page document. Here's what I'm suggesting. We implement a mandatory guest logbook at the pool entrance. Every resident who brings guests must sign them in, names, time of arrival. Pool monitors will check the log throughout the day and enforce the 2-guest limit per household. A sign-in sheet, James looked skeptical. That seems excessive. It's standard practice at most community pools, Marcus countered. It creates accountability. Right now, we have no way of tracking who's actually a resident versus who's a guest. The key cards only open the gate. They don't log individual entries. Karen will lose her mind, Dorothy said. Karen has already lost her mind, Sandra muttered. Every time we try to enforce anything. Marcus leaned forward. Here's the thing, this isn't targeted at the Whitmores. It applies to everyone equally. That's exactly why we need it, to demonstrate that enforcement is fair and consistent. No one can claim discrimination when every single resident follows the same procedure. Patricia studied the proposal. What about implementation, cost? Minimal. We need a weatherproof logbook holder, chain it to the fence by the gate, keep waterproof pens stocked. I'm estimating under $100 for setup. We'll need to notify all residents via email and postal mail, post the new policy at the pool, and include it in the next quarterly newsletter. And enforcement. Our pool monitors, Jake and Melissa, will check the log periodically. If they see a household exceeding 2 guests, they issue a warning. Second violation, the resident is fined per our existing fine schedule. Third violation, pool privileges suspended for 30 days. Robert leaned back in his chair. I'll play devil's advocate here. What if residents just lie, sign in fake names? Then they're falsifying an official HOA document, which is grounds for a much larger fine and potential board action, Marcus said. We're counting on the fact that most people won't commit fraud when there's a paper trail with their signature. The board debated for 40 minutes. Dorothy worried it seemed too harsh. James questioned whether they'd get legal pushback. Sandra argued they should have done this years ago. Finally, Patricia called for a vote. 6 in favor, 1 abstention, Dorothy. The motion passed. All right, Patricia said. Marcus, you're in charge of implementation. I want everything in place within 2 weeks. Sandra, work on the resident notification. Everyone else prepare for blowback. Especially from Karen, James added. Marcus gathered his papers. Let her blow back. Everything we're doing is in the bylaws. She agreed to them when she bought her house. As the meeting adjourned, Patricia pulled Marcus aside. You know this is going to get ugly, right? It's already ugly, Marcus said. At least now we're doing something about it. The email went out Wednesday afternoon. Dear Meadowbrook Commons residents, effective Monday, July 17th, the HOA board is implementing a new guest registration system at the community pool. All residents bringing guests must sign them into the logbook at the pool entrance, including guest names and arrival time. This policy ensures compliance with our bylaws, Section 7.3. Residents may be accompanied by up to 2 guests at the pool at any given time, and helps maintain a safe, enjoyable environment for all residents. The existing rules remain unchanged. Pool hours are 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily. Glass containers, alcohol, and loud music are prohibited. Failure to comply with pool policies may result in fines and suspension of privileges. Thank you for your cooperation. Meadowbrook Commons HOA Board. Marcus's phone rang at 6:47 p.m. Unknown number. He let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was Karen Whitmore, and she was screaming. This is targeted harassment. You people are obsessed with my family. I have lawyer friends, Marcus. Lawyer friends. This guest book is invasive, it's discriminatory, and it's probably illegal. I'm reporting you to the state HOA Oversight Board. I'm going to the local news. Everyone is going to know what kind of petty tyrants run this neighborhood. The voicemail cut off at the 2-minute mark. Marcus saved it, added it to his documentation folder, and poured himself a whiskey. His phone rang again. This time it was Patricia. I got a 15-minute voicemail from Karen, she said. You. 2 minutes, she said she has lawyer friends. She said she's contacting the governor's office. Marcus laughed despite himself, over a guest logbook. I'm beginning to think Dorothy was right. This is going to get ugly. Patricia, what's the alternative? We let her family turn the pool into their private club. We ignore 4 dozen complaints. We look incompetent and let the rule of law collapse. A long pause, then, "You're right, I know you're right, I'm tired, Marcus." "Me too, that's why we're fixing it." The logbook and weatherproof holder were installed Friday afternoon. Marcus did it himself, bolting the metal box to the fence post directly beside the pool gate. Inside was a spiral-bound, waterproof notebook with clear instructions on the first page. All RESID and TS bringing guests must sign in. Include date, resident name, address, guest names, arrival time. Maximum 2 guests per household at any time. Pool monitors will verify compliance. He'd also installed a small pencil box chained to the fence, filled with pens. Saturday morning, Marcus woke early. He made coffee, positioned himself at the kitchen window, and waited. At 6:34 a.m., Derek Whitmore approached the pool gate with 4 people behind him. Marcus watched Derek stop at the logbook box. Even from a distance, Marcus could see the confusion on his face. Derek opened the box, looked at the notebook, then at his friends. He pulled out his phone, probably texting his mother. 3 minutes later, Derek's phone rang. The conversation lasted less than 30 seconds. Derek looked angry. He shoved his phone in his pocket, grabbed a pen, and scrawled something in the logbook. Then all 5 of them went through the gate into the pool area. Marcus was already moving. He grabbed his own pool key card and headed out. When he reached the pool, Derek and his friends were setting up in their usual spot, the large corner area with the best shade and most lounge chairs. They'd already pushed several chairs together, blocking access for anyone else. Marcus opened the logbook box and read Derek's entry. Date 7/15. Resident Derek Whitmore. Address 847 Maple. Guests Mike, Josh, Tyler, Brittany. Time 6:30. 4 guests, not 2. Marcus took out his phone and photographed the page. Then he walked to the pool area, where Derek was connecting a Bluetooth speaker. "Morning, Derek." Derek looked up, his expression immediately hostile. "What?" "I need you and 2 of your guests to leave. The bylaws allow 2 guests per household. You've signed in 4. "Are you serious right now?" "Completely serious. You can choose which 2 stay, but the others need to go." Derek stood up, squaring his shoulders. He had 3 inches and 40 pounds on Marcus. "My mom pays for this pool same as everyone else. And your mom is allowed to bring 2 guests. So are you as a resident of her household, not 4. This is such bullshit." "Derek," Marcus kept his voice level, "you have 2 choices. You and 2 friends leave voluntarily, or I call our pool monitor and you get an official warning on your account. That's the first step toward fines and suspension." Brittany, Derek's girlfriend, tugged his arm. "Babe, it's not worth it." "It's principle," Derek snapped. "Actually," Marcus said, "it's rules. The same rules everyone else follows, your choice." For a long moment, Derek just stared at him, jaw clenched. Then he yanked his speaker off the table. "Come on," he muttered to his friends. "This place is Nazi Germany anyway." All 5 of them left. Marcus waited until the gate clicked shut behind them, then pulled out his phone and called Patricia. "First enforcement action complete," he said. "Derek Whitmore violated the guest policy, documented and resolved. They left voluntarily." "Did he cause a scene?" "Mild called me a Nazi, pretty standard." Patricia sighed. "Okay, I'll make a note in the official log. Good work, Marcus." But Marcus knew this was just the beginning. By Sunday afternoon, Karen Whitmore would make her move. And when she did, the real war would begin. Part 2. Sunday morning at Meadowbrook Commons was typically peaceful. Residents watered gardens, walked dogs, read newspapers on front porches. The community had a sleepy, suburban rhythm that Marcus had always appreciated. That peace shattered at 9:47 a.m. when Karen Whitmore's silver Lexus screeched to a stop in front of the pool entrance. Marcus wasn't at the pool. He was in his home office, reviewing the association's third-quarter budget projections. But his phone lit up with a group text from James Wu, who lived across from the pool. "Karen just arrived with what looks like 15 people. You should get down here." Marcus grabbed his keycard and phone, jogging the 2 blocks to the pool. The scene was even worse than he'd imagined. Karen stood at the pool gate like a general addressing troops. Behind her was an entire family reunion. Her husband Howard, Derek and his girlfriend, Karen's sister Margaret and Margaret's husband, 4 teenagers Marcus didn't recognize, 3 small children running in circles, and 2 elderly people who must have been Karen's parents. 16 people total. Jake Morrison, the 23-year-old lifeguard and pool monitor, stood uncertainly by the equipment shed, clearly unsure how to handle the situation. Karen spotted Marcus immediately. "There he is," she shouted, pointing at him like he'd personally wronged her entire bloodline. "The man who wants to destroy family values." Several residents who'd been swimming stopped to watch. Marcus felt every eye on him as he approached. "Karen," he said calmly, "what's going on?" "What's going on is that I'm exercising my legal rights as a dues-paying resident of this community. My family is here to enjoy the pool, which we pay for. You're allowed to bring 2 guests. Don't." Karen's face had gone scarlet. "Don't you dare lecture me about rules. I've read the bylaws cover to cover, Marcus, cover to cover. And nowhere does it say that residents can't invite their own family members to use community amenities." Marcus kept his voice level. Section 7.3 explicitly states. Section 7.3 is discriminatory and probably illegal. Karen cut him off. "I've consulted with legal counsel, actual legal counsel, not you wannabe lawyers playing HOA board, and they've informed me that restricting a resident's family members violates several statutes related to familial discrimination." This was creative fiction, and Marcus knew it. But Karen was playing to an audience now. 3 more residents had drifted closer to watch the confrontation. "Karen, the 2-guest limit has been in the bylaws since this community was built in 2006. If you have legal concerns, you're welcome to file them formally with the board." "I'm filing them right now by exercising my rights," Karen gestured to her assembled family. "Everyone here is either a direct resident of 847 Maple Court or an immediate family member. We're going swimming." She pulled out her key card and swiped it at the gate. The lock clicked open. "Karen, wait." But she was already ushering her family through. The children ran ahead, shrieking with excitement. Derek shot Marcus a triumphant smirk as he passed. Marcus turned to Jake, who looked pale. "Do you want me to?" "No," Marcus said quietly. "Let them in, document everything. Log the guest names, all 14 of them, time-stamp it, take photos if you can do it discreetly." Jake nodded and pulled out his phone. Marcus walked to the gate where Howard Whitmore, Karen's husband, was bringing up the rear with a cooler. "Howard," Marcus said, "can we talk for a minute?" Howard had always struck Marcus as the more reasonable Whitmore. He was a civil engineer, quiet, usually tried to stay out of HOA politics. Now he looked exhausted. "Marcus, I tried to talk her out of this." "I know you did. She's convinced she's making some kind of constitutional stand." Howard shook his head. "It's a guest logbook. It's not the Berlin Wall." "Will you talk to her? Explain that this escalation isn't helping." "I've been married to Karen for 27 years. When she gets like this..." Howard trailed off, shrugging helplessly. "She thinks you're personally attacking our family." "I'm enforcing rules that apply to everyone." "I know that, you know that. Karen sees it as persecution." Howard glanced back at the pool, where Karen was loudly directing people to set up their area. "Look, give me a few days. Maybe she'll calm down once she's made her point." But Marcus could see in Howard's eyes that even he didn't believe that. The emergency board meeting convened at 2 p.m. in Patricia Chen's living room. All 7 members crowded around her dining table, reviewing Jake's documentation from the morning. The photos were damning. 16 people, all clearly together, taking up nearly a third of the pool area. The logbook entry Karen had made was a masterpiece of malicious compliance. Date 7/16. Resident, Karen Whitmore, Howard Whitmore, Derek Whitmore, all residents of 847 Maple Court. Address, 847 Maple Court. Guests, Margaret, Robert, Jenny, Tim, Madison, Tyler, Josh, Emma, David, Carol, Susan, Tom, Brittany. Time 9:45 a.m. She listed 3 residents from her household, herself, Howard, and Derek, and claimed that each of them was bringing guests within the 2-person limit. "This is absurd," Sandra said. "Derek is 22 and lives at home. He's not a separate household." But technically he's a resident of that address, James pointed out. The bylaws say residents can bring guests. They don't specify that multi-generational households are limited to one resident's guest allocation. Patricia rubbed her temples. This is exactly the kind of loophole she was looking for. Marcus had anticipated this. He pulled out another document. Which is why I drafted Amendment 7.3a last night. It clarifies that residents and guests means a maximum of 2 guests per property address, regardless of how many adult residents live there. 1 household, 1 guest limit. Can we do that? Dorothy asked. We can propose amendments to the bylaws with a board vote, then put them to the general membership for approval. But amendments take 60 days minimum to implement. So Karen can keep doing this for 2 more months. No, Marcus said, because we can also vote to issue an immediate violation notice based on the original bylaw language. The board has discretion in interpreting existing rules while amendments are pending. Robert leaned forward. You want to fine her? I want to enforce the rules we already have. The bylaw says residents may bring 2 guests. The clear intent is 2 guests per household. Karen's interpretation, that each adult resident gets their own 2-guest allocation, would mean a house with 4 adults could bring 8 guests. That's absurd and defeats the entire purpose of capacity limits. She'll sue, Dorothy said. Let her sue, Sandra shot back. We have bylaws, we have documentation, and we have 47 resident complaints backing us up. Any judge will see this is about reasonable enforcement, not discrimination. The debate raged for 90 minutes. Dorothy argued for compromise. Thomas suggested they try mediation. Robert worried about legal costs. Finally, Patricia called for a vote on 2 motions. Issue a formal violation notice to the Whitmore household for exceeding guest limits. Draft Amendment 7.3a, clarifying 1 guest limit per property address. Both passed 6-1. Dorothy abstained from the first motion and voted yes on the second. All right, Patricia said. Marcus, you'll deliver the violation notice. I'll hand-deliver it tomorrow. Certified mail too, Sandra added. We need proof of delivery. As the meeting broke up, James pulled Marcus aside. You know she's going to go nuclear, right? This is going to consume the next several months of our lives. Probably, Marcus agreed. But what's the alternative? We cave to her tantrum and every other resident sees that rules don't matter if you yell loud enough. James sighed. You're right. I just missed the days when the biggest drama was arguing about landscaping. Marcus delivered the violation notice on Monday at 6 p.m. He'd chosen that time deliberately. Howard would be home from work, possibly providing a moderating influence. He rang the doorbell at 847 Maple Court, official HOA envelope in hand. Derek answered, Oh, great, it's you. I need to deliver this to your parents. Mom, Derek yelled over his shoulder. The HOA fascist is here. Karen appeared moments later, still in her work clothes. She was a pharmaceutical sales rep, though Marcus couldn't imagine her bedside manner with doctors. Howard emerged from the kitchen behind her, already looking resigned. Karen Whitmore, Marcus kept his voice formal. I'm here on behalf of the Meadowbrook Commons HOA board to deliver an official violation notice. He held out the envelope. Karen snatched it from his hand and tore it open immediately. Her eyes scanned the page. With each line, her face grew redder. A $500 fine. For violating Section 7.3 of the community bylaws by bringing 14 guests to the community pool, exceeding the stated limit by 12 people. This is extortion. Howard reached for the letter. Karen, let me see. She jerked it away from him. No, this is retaliation. They're targeting us because I stood up for my rights. You violated a clear policy, Marcus said evenly. The same policy every resident agreed to follow. That policy is ambiguous and discriminatory. The board disagrees. You have 30 days to pay the fine or appeal to the full board at the next general meeting. The notice includes all the relevant information. Karen's hands were shaking, whether from rage or adrenaline Marcus couldn't tell. You think you've won? You think this is over? I think you were given multiple warnings and chose to violate community rules anyway. Actions have consequences. Howard, Karen turned to her husband. Call Brad. Call him right now. Brad was Karen's brother-in-law, a real estate lawyer. Marcus had anticipated this too. "You're certainly welcome to seek legal counsel," Marcus said. "Any legal communications should be directed to the HOA's registered agent. That information is in the notice." He turned to leave, but Karen wasn't done. "I'm going to destroy you," she said, her voice low and venomous. "I'm going to make your life hell. I'm going to file complaints with every agency I can find. I'm going to stand up at the next general meeting and tell every single resident what kind of petty tyrant you are. I'm going to—" Karen, Howard's voice was sharp. "Stop." She whirled on him. "Don't tell me to stop, don't you dare. You're threatening an HOA board member in front of witnesses. That's harassment, and it could get us in even more trouble." Derek shifted uncomfortably. Even he seemed to recognize his mother had crossed a line. Karen's mouth opened and closed. Then she spun back to Marcus. "Get off my property." Gladly, Marcus walked down the front path, his heart pounding but his expression calm. Behind him, he heard Howard say quietly, "Karen, we need to talk. Inside, now." The door slammed. Marcus walked back to his house, pulled out his phone, and sent a text to the board group chat. "Violation notice delivered. Karen threatened retaliation. Suggest we document everything going forward." Patricia's response came immediately. "Already started a legal defense file. This is going to get worse before it gets better." "Sandra, stay strong, Marcus. You're doing the right thing." "Dorothy, I really think we should try mediation." No one responded to Dorothy's message. The next 3 days were relatively quiet. Too quiet. Marcus found himself checking the pool cameras from his phone. The community had installed them 2 years ago for security, watching for another Whitmore incursion. But the pool remained Whitmore-free. On Friday afternoon, Marcus came home from his job as an aerospace project manager to find an envelope taped to his front door. No postage, hand-delivered. Inside was a letter on official legal letterhead. Law Offices of Bradford and Chen. Attorneys at Law. Dear Mr. Rivera, this office represents Howard and Karen Whitmore regarding recent actions taken by the Meadowbrook Commons HOA Board. Our clients have been subjected to selective enforcement of ambiguous and potentially discriminatory policies targeting their families' use of community amenities. The recently imposed guest logbook requirement appears to be pretext for harassment of the Whitmore family, who have consistently paid all HOA dues and assessments in full and on time. Furthermore, the violation notice and associated fine issued on July 17th is based on an overly restrictive interpretation of HOA bylaws that is not supported by the plain language of the documents. We are prepared to pursue all legal remedies available to our clients, including but not limited to filing a complaint with the state HOA ombudsman for harassment and selective enforcement, pursuing civil action for damages related to discriminatory practices, seeking injunctive relief to prevent further harassment of our clients. We request immediate rescission of the July 17th violation notice and fine. Additionally, we request that the HOA board cease all targeted enforcement actions against the Whitmore family. Please respond within 10 business days. Sincerely, Bradford Chen-esque. Marcus read it twice, then photographed it and sent it to the board group chat along with a message. Received first letter from Whitmore's attorney. Forward to our HOA lawyer. Patricia already on it, sending everything to Jennifer Marsh now. Jennifer Marsh was the HOA's retained attorney, a sharp woman in her 40s who specialized in community association law. Marcus had met her once at a training seminar. His phone rang 20 minutes later. It was Jennifer. "Marcus, I've reviewed everything Patricia sent. Here's the bottom line. This letter is mostly bluster. Bradford Chen is a real estate lawyer, not an HOA specialist. The claims are weak. So we ignore it. No, we respond professionally through official channels. But you personally don't need to do anything. I'll draft a response explaining that the board's actions are consistent with the bylaws, apply equally to all residents, and are based on documented violations. I'll also point out that the amendment process is underway to clarify the language, which demonstrates good faith." "What about their threat of lawsuits?" "Let them sue. Honestly, Marcus, I've seen this scenario 100 times. Resident doesn't like a rule, hires their cousin or brother-in-law to write a scary letter, hopes the board backs down. Most boards do. But you have documentation, consistent enforcement attempts, and clear bylaw language. You're on solid legal ground. And the discrimination claims. Jennifer actually laughed. Requiring all residents to follow the same guest policy is the opposite of discrimination. That claim is nonsense. Marcus felt tension drain from his shoulders. So we just keep enforcing. Exactly. Stay consistent, document everything, and let your legal counsel handle the legal threats. That's what you pay me for. The next general HOA meeting was scheduled for the first Tuesday of August, 3 weeks away. Marcus knew that would be the real battlefield. But Karen Whitmore couldn't wait that long. On Sunday morning, exactly 1 week after her 16-person pool invasion, she made her next move. And this time, she brought reporters. Marcus was having breakfast when his phone exploded with notifications. Group chat messages, texts from neighbors, even a missed call from his mother. He opened the neighborhood Facebook group and saw the post immediately. Local family targeted by power-hungry HOA board. Karen had uploaded a video. In it, she stood in front of the pool gate, the guest logbook visible behind her, speaking directly to the camera with tears in her eyes. My name is Karen Whitmore, and I'm being harassed by my HOA for the crime of wanting to spend time with my family. They've installed this invasive sign-in system, she gestured to the logbook, that requires me to register my loved ones like they're criminals. When I tried to have a family gathering, just my parents, my sister's family, people I love, I was fined $500. The video had been professionally shot, probably on Derek's girlfriend's phone, but edited with titles and background music. This isn't about rules, this is about control. This is about a small group of people who want to dictate how residents live their lives. My family pays the same assessments as everyone else. We have the same rights. But because I stood up to them, because I questioned their authority, I'm being targeted. Karen wiped at her eyes. I'm sharing this because I want people to know what's happening in neighborhoods all across America. HOAs have too much power. They can fine you, sue you, put liens on your homes, and there's almost no oversight. If this can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. The video ended with a title card. Share if you've experienced HOA abuse. Within hours, it had 200 shares. By evening, over 1,000. And then the local news picked it up. Marcus was watching the 6 o'clock news when the segment aired. Local woman claims HOA harassment over family pool visits. The reporter, a young woman named Melissa Chang, stood outside Meadowbrook Commons. In this quiet suburban neighborhood, a conflict is brewing over community pool rules. Karen Whitmore says her family is being unfairly targeted by restrictive policies. They showed clips from Karen's video, then cut to an interview filmed that afternoon. Karen, looking perfectly composed in a navy blouse, spoke earnestly. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for fairness. The idea that I can't invite my elderly parents to swim with me because of some arbitrary limit, it's cruel. It's wrong. The reporter, the HOA declined our request for an on-camera interview but provided this statement. Marcus's stomach sank as his own words appeared on screen. The Meadowbrook Commons HOA board enforces all community rules consistently and fairly. The guest policy has been in place since 2006 and applies equally to all residents. The way they'd edited it, he sounded like a corporate spokesman. Cold, bureaucratic. Karen got the last word. I just want other families to know you're not alone. If your HOA is overreaching, stand up, speak out. Don't let them bully you into silence. Marcus's phone rang. Patricia. Did you see? I saw. We're trending on local Twitter. This is a disaster. This is exactly what she wanted, Marcus said. She's weaponizing public opinion because she knows the legal arguments are weak. Well, it's working. I've gotten 30 emails in the last hour, half supporting us, half calling us Nazis. Marcus closed his eyes. Next board meeting is going to be packed. Marcus, maybe Dorothy was right. Maybe we should try to negotiate. Negotiate what? She violated the rules. She got fined. Those are the consequences. If we back down now, every rule becomes optional. I know you're right. Patricia sighed. I signed up to help maintain property values and organize the holiday party. I didn't sign up for this. None of them had. But they were in it now, and the only way out was through. Part 3. By Monday morning, Karen Whitmore's video had gone viral locally. It appeared on 3 neighborhood Facebook groups, was shared by a popular suburban mom's blog called HOA Horror Stories, and had been picked up by a local podcast about property rights. Marcus arrived at his office, a nondescript building near the airport where his aerospace firm had been headquartered for decades, to find his voicemail already full. 2 messages were from reporters requesting interviews. 1 was from a podcaster wanting him on her show. 3 were from angry people who'd seen Karen's video and wanted to tell him exactly what they thought of HOA tyrants. His assistant, Monica, gave him a sympathetic look as he passed her desk. Rough weekend. Getting rougher, he closed his office door and sat down to tackle the mess. The first email in his inbox was from Jennifer Marsh, the HOA's attorney. Marcus, I've reviewed the news coverage and social media posts. This is a classic pressure campaign designed to force the board to back down. My advice, hold firm. Respond to legitimate inquiries through proper channels, direct them to me, ignore social media attacks, and continue documenting everything. The more she escalates publicly while you maintain professional composure, the better you look when this eventually reaches any formal proceeding. Also, I've researched Bradford Chen. He's done basic real estate closings but has 0 experience with HOA litigation. If the Whitmores actually file suit, they'll need to retain specialized counsel, which will cost them $10,000 plus just to start. Most people making these threats never follow through. Stay the course. Jennifer. Marcus forwarded it to the board group chat, then started working on the quarterly financial reports he actually got paid to produce. But concentration was impossible. Every few minutes, his phone buzzed with another notification. At 10:30 a.m., his direct supervisor stopped by his office. Greg Martinez was a good boss, hands-off, trusted his team, rarely micromanaged. Hey, Marcus, got a minute? Sure, Marcus minimized his screen. Greg closed the door and sat down. So, you're famous. Marcus's stomach dropped. You saw the news. My wife showed me the video. She follows that HOA Horror Stories blog. Greg leaned back. Look, what you do outside work is your business, but I wanted to give you a heads up. HR got a call this morning. What kind of call? Someone claiming to be a concerned citizen, saying they were worried about your aggressive behavior toward community members. Wanted to alert us that we had someone with anger management issues working here. Marcus felt heat rise in his face. That's insane. I haven't been aggressive toward anyone. I know, HR knows. They told the caller that personnel matters are confidential and hung up. But Marcus, if this thing keeps escalating, you need to be aware it could spill over into your professional life. People get creative when they're angry. Karen Whitmore called my employer to try to get me fired. Greg shrugged. We don't know it was her specifically. Could have been a supporter. Either way, watch your back. After Greg left, Marcus sat in his office staring at nothing. This was worse than he'd anticipated. Karen wasn't just fighting the HOA board, she was trying to destroy him personally. He picked up his phone and called Patricia. Someone called my employer this morning, tried to claim I had anger issues. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Mine too. They called the real estate office where I work, said I was using my position on the HOA board to discriminate against families. This is coordinated. Obviously, Marcus, I'm starting to get scared. This isn't just about pool rules anymore. No, Marcus agreed. It's about whether rules mean anything at all. The next blow came Tuesday afternoon. Marcus was on a conference call when his phone lit up with an emergency notification from the neighborhood app. He excused himself from the call and checked the message. Violation report. Trash bins left on curb past pickup deadline, 412 Birch Lane. Marcus's address. He pulled up his home security camera feed. Sure enough, his trash and recycling bins were still at the curb, clearly visible from the street. He always rolled them back by Tuesday evening, but in the chaos of the past few days, he'd forgotten. The violation report had been filed by username, Concerned Resident 22, an account created that morning. The fine for leaving bins out past deadline was $25, not much. But the message was clear. They were watching him, looking for any mistake they could weaponize. Marcus immediately texted his neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, an elderly widow who lived next door. "Mrs. P, would you mind rolling my bins back? I'm at work and just realized I forgot. We'll owe you cookies." Her response came quickly. "Already done, dear. Saw them out and took care of it. Ignore those nasty people." Marcus felt a rush of gratitude. Mrs. Patterson had lived in Meadowbrook for 20 years. She understood what was happening. But the violation report was still there, visible to the entire community. Karen's supporters could now point to it and say, "See, he breaks rules too." Marcus called the violation hotline, an automated system managed by the HOA's property management company, and left a message explaining the bins had been returned within an hour of the violation report. He attached a timestamp from his security camera proving it. The violation would be reviewed at the next board meeting. Standard procedure. Everything by the book. Wednesday brought the next escalation. Marcus arrived home from work to find a letter from the county code enforcement office. Someone had reported that his fence was potentially in violation of setback requirements, and his tree was overhanging the sidewalk in a hazardous manner. A county inspector would need to visit the property within 30 days to verify compliance. Marcus walked his property line. The fence was exactly where it had been when he'd bought the house 6 years ago, professionally installed by the previous owner, with all permits properly filed. The tree was a mature oak that provided shade for his driveway. Yes, it overhung the sidewalk slightly, but no more than hundreds of other trees in the neighborhood. These were nuisance complaints, false reports designed to harass him. He took photos of everything, documenting the fence position and tree clearance. Then he called the non-emergency line for county code enforcement and explained he'd be happy to accommodate the inspector, but believed the complaints were retaliatory and frivolous. The clerk was sympathetic but unhelpful. "We have to investigate every complaint we receive, sir. The inspector will determine if there are actual violations." "I understand. Can you tell me who filed the complaint?" "Those reports are anonymous." "Of course they were." That evening, the board group chat exploded with similar messages. "Sandra, someone reported my home business. I do bookkeeping from home to the county. Claim I'm violating zoning laws." "James got a notice about my mailbox being damaged. It's fine. Someone filed a false report." "Robert, my fence suddenly doesn't meet HOA standards. It's been the same fence for 8 years." They were targeting every board member who'd voted for the violation notice against Karen. Only Dorothy, who'd abstained, reported no harassment. Patricia sent a message to the full board. "Emergency meeting tonight, 8 p.m., my house. We need to discuss this coordinated harassment campaign." 7 board members crowded into Patricia's living room that evening, the atmosphere tense. "This is witness intimidation," Sandra said immediately. "She's trying to scare us into backing down." "We don't have proof it's Karen specifically," Dorothy pointed out. "These could be unrelated." "Don't be naive," Robert interrupted. 5 board members suddenly get false complaints filed against them within 48 hours of voting to fine Karen. That's not coincidence. Marcus pulled out his laptop. "I've been documenting everything. Karen's video went viral Saturday. Sunday evening, someone created new accounts on the neighborhood app, 5 accounts, all created within an hour of each other. Monday, those accounts started filing reports against board members. The pattern is obvious." "Can we prove the accounts are connected to Karen?" James asked. "Not definitively. They're using VPNs and anonymous email addresses, but the timing is damning." Patricia looked exhausted. She'd pulled her hair back in a messy ponytail and had dark circles under her eyes. "What are our options?" Jennifer Marsh had joined via video call, her face displayed on Patricia's laptop screen. "Realistically, you can file complaints with the neighborhood app platform about the fake accounts. You can document the harassment pattern for potential future legal action. But unless someone makes a direct threat or does something clearly criminal, there's not much law enforcement will do." "So we just take it," Sandra looked furious. "Let them file false reports and harass us until we give up. Or you could rescind the fine and accept Karen's interpretation of the guest policy," Jennifer said neutrally. I'm your lawyer, not your conscience. I can only tell you the legal options. Absolutely not, Marcus said immediately. If we back down, we're not just losing this one fight. We're establishing that anyone can break any rule as long as they make enough noise and threaten enough people. Marcus is right, Robert agreed. This is about precedent. Every resident is watching to see if the board has any actual authority or if we're just toothless bureaucrats. Dorothy cleared her throat. But at what cost? We're being harassed, our jobs are being threatened, our private properties are being subjected to false complaints. Is this really worth it over a pool policy? It's not about the pool, Marcus said quietly. It's about whether we live in a community with rules or a community where the loudest bully gets her way. The room fell silent. Finally, Thomas spoke up. He'd been quiet until now, just listening. Thomas was 70, a retired judge. He chose his words carefully. I've presided over hundreds of cases in my career, everything from small claims to criminal trials. And I'll tell you what I learned, justice is uncomfortable. Doing the right thing usually costs something. If it were easy to enforce rules, we wouldn't need courts or laws or consequences. He looked around the room. Corinne Whitmore is engaging in a campaign to exhaust you emotionally and financially. She's betting that you'll decide it's not worth the hassle. Most people make that calculation and give up. But if you give up, you're not just giving up on a pool policy, you're giving up on the principle that rules exist to protect the community, not just the individual. So what do you suggest? Patricia asked. Counter her publicity campaign with facts. Document everything, stay professional, and be prepared for this to get worse before it gets better. Thomas leaned forward. I'll tell you something else I learned. Bullies escalate until they face real consequences. Corinne's going to push and push until she hits a wall. Your job is to be that wall. The board voted to hold firm. No rescinding of the fine, no change in policy, continue with the bylaw amendment process. But they also voted to hire a PR consultant. Jennifer Marsh recommended someone named Rachel Nguyen, who specialized in crisis communications for community associations. Rachel came cheap, $500 for a 1-month engagement, and within 48 hours had developed a strategy. The HOA would not engage in mudslinging. They would not defend themselves against Corinne's accusations directly. Instead, they would publish a clear, factual timeline of events on the HOA's official website and in the next newsletter. Rachel drafted the statement. Meadowbrook Commons HOA, guest policy facts. Recent social media posts and news coverage have generated questions about our community's guest policies. Here are the facts. Our guest policy, maximum 2 guests per household at community pool, has existed since 2006. It applies equally to all 247 households in Meadowbrook Commons. Between May and July 2025, we received 47 written complaints about overcrowding at the pool. The guest logbook was implemented in July to ensure fair, consistent enforcement. All residents were notified of the logbook requirement via email and postal mail. One household violated the policy by bringing 14 guests to the pool. That household was issued a fine consistent with our established fine schedule. The board is currently drafting a bylaw amendment to clarify language regarding guests. The board's role is to enforce community rules fairly and consistently. No resident receives special treatment, positive or negative. We encourage anyone with questions or concerns to attend our monthly general meetings, where all residents are welcome to speak during the open forum. Thank you for your understanding. It was dry, it was boring, it was perfect. Rachel also coached board members on how to respond if approached by reporters. Refer them to the official statement. Don't get drawn into debates. Don't defend yourselves emotionally, just facts delivered calmly. The statement went live on the HOA website Thursday evening. By Friday morning, it had been shared on the neighborhood Facebook groups, not by board members, but by residents who were tired of Corinne's drama. The tide was starting to turn. Saturday brought validation from an unexpected source. Marcus was grocery shopping when he ran into Tom Brennan, a neighbor from 3 streets over. Tom was in his 60s, a retired firefighter, and had lived in Meadowbrook since the community opened. Marcus got a minute. They stood by the produce section, while Tom spoke in his characteristic gruff manner. Wanted you to know, Lot of us old-timers are behind you on this pool thing. Corinne Whitmore's been a pain in the ass since she moved here. Remember when she tried to get the board to ban the neighborhood Halloween party because she didn't like kids trampling her lawn? Marcus didn't remember that. It must have been before he joined the board. Or when she reported the Johnsons for having their RV parked in their driveway for 3 hours during their camping trip. Or when she demanded the board force the Patels to remove their vegetable garden because she thought it was unsightly. I didn't know about any of this. Tom snorted. That's because nothing came of it. The board told her she was being unreasonable. But she's always been like this, thinks the rules should bend for her family while everyone else follows them strictly. You're just the first person who called her on it publicly. She's making my life hell, Tom. Yeah, well, she's been making everyone's life hell for years. Difference is you're not backing down. Keep it up. Most of us are rooting for you, we're just not loud about it. After Tom walked away, Marcus stood in the produce section feeling slightly less alone. That evening, his phone dinged with an email from a resident named Angela Kim, subject line, "Thank you. Mr. Rivera, I don't normally involve myself in HOA politics, but I wanted to let you know I support what you're doing. Last summer, I brought my 2 children and my elderly mother to the pool. We were told we exceeded the guest limit because I was 3 guests, even though my mother can barely walk and my kids are 6 and 8. Meanwhile, I watched other families consistently bring large groups with no consequences. I stopped using the pool because I was embarrassed and frustrated. The logbook isn't perfect, but at least it's fair. Everyone follows the same rules. Please don't give up. Some of us appreciate that you're trying to make this community work for everyone, not just the people who complain the loudest. Sincerely, Angela Kim." Marcus forwarded it to the board chat with no comment. Within minutes, similar messages appeared. Other board members were receiving supportive emails too. Not many, maybe a dozen total across all board members. But it was something. The first Tuesday of August arrived, the general HOA meeting. Meadowbrook Commons held these meetings quarterly in the community center's main hall, which had a maximum capacity of 150 people. Typically, 15 to 20 residents showed up. Board members occasionally joked about the apathy, wishing more people engaged with community governance. They weren't joking anymore. By 6:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the meeting was set to start, every seat was full. People lined the walls, more waited outside the doors. The fire marshal showed up at 6:50 and capped attendance at maximum capacity. Anyone else would have to wait outside and wouldn't be allowed to participate in the open forum. Marcus stood near the front table where the board members would sit, watching the crowd file in. He recognized maybe a third of them as regular residents. The rest were strangers, some wearing "Support the Whitmores" t-shirts that had apparently been created and distributed for the occasion. Patricia stood next to him, pale. "This is insane." She mobilized her base. "We're going to get destroyed." "Maybe," Marcus said, "or maybe people will see exactly who she is." Corinne arrived at 6:58, flanked by Howard and Derek. She dressed carefully, business casual, professional but approachable. She worked the room like a politician, shaking hands, hugging supporters, looking every bit like someone running for office. She spotted Marcus and smiled, the cold smile of someone who thought they'd already won. At 7:00 p.m. exactly, Patricia called the meeting to order. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending tonight's general meeting. Due to the size of the crowd, we'll need to establish some ground rules for the open forum." "Point of order." Corinne was on her feet immediately. "Before we proceed with standard business, I move that we vote on rescinding the fine issued to my family and repealing the discriminatory guest logbook policy." Patricia remained calm. "That's not how our meetings work, Mrs. Whitmore. We follow the published agenda, which includes board reports, financial updates, and then an open forum where residents can speak. You'll have your opportunity." "This is exactly the problem." Corinne addressed the crowd, not the board. "They control the agenda, they control who speaks, they control everything. We're residents, but we have no real voice." Several people in Support the Whitmores shirts applauded. Thomas, the retired judge, spoke up. "Mrs. Whitmore, you're out of order. Parliamentary procedure exists to ensure meetings are productive." "Parliamentary procedure? is just another way to silence dissent. This was going to be a long night. Patricia soldiered through the agenda. Financial report. The community was in good shape, reserves were healthy, all bills paid. Property management report, landscaping contracts renewed, 2 streetlights repaired, pool equipment maintenance completed. Every 5 minutes, Karen or one of her supporters would interrupt with points of order or procedural objections. Finally, they reached the open forum. Any resident may speak for up to 3 minutes, Patricia announced. Please state your name and address for the record. We ask that everyone be respectful. Karen was already at the microphone. My name is Karen Whitmore, 847 Maple Court. I've lived in this community for 8 years. I've paid every assessment on time. I've followed every rule until this board decided rules didn't apply to them, only to residents they wanted to punish. Marcus watched her work. She was good at this. Her voice carried emotion but stayed controlled. She made eye contact with the audience, not the board. 3 weeks ago, I brought my family to our community pool. My elderly parents who are in their 70s. My sister's family who were visiting from out of state. My adult son who lives at home because housing costs are impossible for young people. And for this, for wanting to spend time with my family, I was fined $500. She let that sink in. The board claims this is about enforcing rules. But these aren't rules, they're interpretations. The bylaw says residents can bring 2 guests. It doesn't say that 3 adult residents living at one address can only bring 2 guests total. That's the board's interpretation, an interpretation designed to target my family. More applause from her supporters. And when I questioned this interpretation, when I stood up for my rights, the board retaliated. They installed an invasive logbook system. They issued harassing fines. Board members have engaged in a campaign of intimidation, calling my workplace, filing false complaints about my property, trying to silence me through bureaucratic bullying. Marcus felt every eye in the room on him. He kept his expression neutral. This isn't about a pool policy. This is about power. This is about a small group of people who think they can control how you live, who you invite to your home, how you spend time with your family. Today it's my family. Tomorrow it could be yours. Karen stepped back from the microphone. The applause was thunderous, at least from half the room. Patricia waited for silence. Thank you, Mrs. Whitmore. Next speaker. An older man approached the mic. Bill Paulson, 334 Cedar Drive. I just want to say, I've never seen this community so divided. Maybe the board should consider compromise instead of being so rigid. Next was a woman in her 30s. Jessica Torres, 612 Elm Street. I support the board. We have rules for a reason. If we don't enforce them, what's the point of having an HOA? The speakers alternated, some supporting Karen, others supporting the board. The meeting stretched past 8 p.m., then 8:30, then 9:00. Finally, Tom Brennan, the retired firefighter, stepped up to the microphone. Tom Brennan, 523 Willow Lane. I've lived here since this community was built. And I'll tell you something about Karen Whitmore. She's been complaining about HOA rules for years, but only when those rules applied to her. She wanted the Johnsons fined for parking their RV. She wanted the Patels forced to remove their garden. She reported the neighborhood kids for playing too loud. But the second a rule inconvenienced her family, suddenly it's tyranny. Karen stood up. That's a lie, that's. Ma'am, it's not your turn to speak, Patricia said firmly. Tom continued. The board isn't perfect, but they're trying to enforce rules consistently. That's their job. And if we undermine them every time someone throws a tantrum, we might as well not have rules at all. The room erupted, half in applause, half in boos. Patricia banged the gavel. Order, we will have order. But the meeting had devolved into chaos. People were shouting at each other. Karen's supporters were chanting, recall the board. Other residents were shouting back, follow the rules. Finally, Thomas stood up. His voice cut through the noise like he was still on the bench. Quiet. The room fell silent. I've sat through a lot of contentious proceedings in my career, Thomas said. But this is embarrassing. You're all adults. Act like it. He turned to Karen. Mrs. Whitmore, you've made your position clear. The board has heard you. Now let the process work. There will be a vote on the bylaw amendment at the next meeting. Lobby for your position, convince your neighbors, participate in democracy, but stop with the circus. Karen opened her mouth to respond, but Howard put a hand on her arm, shaking his head. Thomas looked out at the crowd. And the rest of you supporting your neighbor is fine. Turning an HOA meeting into a mob is not. We're better than this. Patricia seized the moment. If there are no other speakers, I move to adjourn this meeting. Second, Marcus said immediately. All in favor. The board voted unanimously to adjourn. The meeting ended at 9:37 p.m. As residents filed out, Marcus overheard fragments of conversation. Completely out of line. Board's being ridiculous. Can't believe she brought all those people. He's right, though, she's a hypocrite. Outside, the humid August night felt almost pleasant compared to the pressure cooker of the meeting hall. Marcus was walking to his car when someone called his name. Karen stood by her Lexus, arms crossed. You think you won tonight, she said. I think democracy happened, Marcus replied. This isn't over. I know. She studied him for a long moment. Why won't you just let this go? Why does this matter so much to you? It was the first genuine question she'd asked him since this started. Marcus considered his answer carefully. Because when I moved here, I chose a community with rules, structure, order. I could have bought a house with no HOA, no restrictions, no shared amenities. But I chose this. And choosing this means accepting that sometimes rules apply to me even when it's inconvenient. So this is about control. No, it's about fairness. Karen shook her head. You really believe that, don't you? That you're the good guy here? I believe I'm enforcing rules that 246 other households follow without complaint. She laughed bitterly. You're going to regret this, Marcus, not because of anything I do, but because you're going to win, and then you'll realize winning doesn't make you right. It just makes you powerful, and power is lonely. She got in her car and drove away. Marcus stood in the parking lot, her words echoing in his head, wondering if she might actually be correct. The week following the general meeting brought an unsettling quiet to Meadowbrook Commons. No violations filed by anonymous accounts. No harassment calls to employers. No news crews parked outside the community entrance. Marcus knew it was a calm before another storm, but he couldn't help feeling cautiously optimistic. The board's group chat reflected that optimism. Sandra, maybe she's finally giving up. James, or planning something bigger. Patricia, let's just enjoy the peace while it lasts. On Thursday afternoon, Marcus stopped by the pool during his lunch break. He'd gotten into the habit of checking the guest logbook a few times a week, documenting compliance. The system was working. Residents were signing in their guests, mostly sticking to the two-person limit, and the pool felt less crowded than it had in months. Jake, the lifeguard, waved him over. Hey, Mr. Rivera, wanted to show you something. Jake pulled out his phone and showed Marcus a series of photos from the previous weekend. Saturday afternoon, I counted heads every hour. Peak capacity was 43 people, well within our safe limit of 60. Before the logbook, we were hitting 55, 60 regularly. Some days we had to turn people away. That's good data. Can you send me those photos? Already did. Sent them to Mrs. Chen, too. Figured the board should know the policy is working. Marcus felt vindicated. This wasn't about being petty or controlling. It was about managing a shared resource responsibly. He was walking back to his car when he noticed a woman standing by the fence, photographing the guest logbook. She was in her 30s, professional attire, definitely not dressed for swimming. Can I help you? Marcus called out. She turned, startled, then composed herself quickly. Hi, I'm Danielle Morrison from Channel 7 News. I'm doing a follow-up story on the HOA controversy. Are you Marcus Rivera? His instinct was to say nothing and walk away, but Rachel Nguyen, their PR consultant, had coached them on this. Don't run from media, be professional, stick to facts, and always return to your core message. I am, and I'm happy to refer you to our official statement on the HOA website. All the facts are there. I was hopping to get your personal perspective. Some residents claim you've been targeting the Whitmore family unfairly. The Whitmore family received a violation notice for bringing 14 guests to the pool in violation of our guest policy. That policy applies to all 247 households in this community equally. But Mrs. Whitmore says, Mrs. Whitmore is welcome to her opinion, but opinions don't change documented facts. 14 guests exceeds our 2-guest limit by 12 people. The violation notice was issued based on clear evidence and consistent policy. Danielle tried a few more angles, asking about the harassment complaints, the tension at the meeting, whether Marcus felt he'd overreacted. He deflected each one, staying calm and factual. Finally, she put away her recorder. Off the record, this story is dying. My editor wanted me to do a follow-up, but there's no new angle. Karen Whitmore broke a rule, got fined, and threw a fit. That's not really news. Then why are you here? Because she's still calling the station every day insisting we cover her persecution. Between you and me, she's exhausting. Most people in her position would just pay the fine and move on. After Danielle left, Marcus called Rachel to report the interaction. You did great, Rachel said. Professional, factual, didn't get emotional. That's exactly right. And honestly, the fact that the reporter is tired of Karen, that's a good sign. Media attention has a shelf life, especially for local stories. Unless something dramatic happens, this story is basically over. Let's hope. The dramatic thing happened on Sunday. Marcus was working in his yard, finally tackling the summer gardening he'd been neglecting, when Mrs. Patterson called over the fence. Marcus, dear, you should come see this. She led him to the sidewalk, where she pointed up at his oak tree. Someone had tied a banner in the branches. HOA Tyrant lives here in large block letters, along with an arrow pointing at his house. Marcus stared at it, feeling his jaw clench. It wasn't there this morning, Mrs. Patterson said. I noticed it about an hour ago. I tried to pull it down, but it's too high up. Marcus got his ladder and extension pole. It took 20 minutes of awkward maneuvering, but he finally managed to pull the banner down. The material was vinyl, professionally printed. Someone had spent money on this. He photographed it before folding it up, then called the non-emergency police line to file a report. The dispatcher was sympathetic but realistic. Technically, this is vandalism, since they put it on your property without permission. But realistically, unless you have camera footage showing who did it, there's not much we can investigate. Marcus did have camera footage. His home security system had cameras covering the front and side yards. He reviewed it. The video showed a dark sedan pulling up at 3:17 a.m. Two people got out, both wearing hoodies and face masks. They worked quickly, using a long pole with a hook to hang the banner in the tree, then drove away. The whole operation took less than 3 minutes. The license plate was obscured by mud or deliberately covered. Marcus sent the footage to the police report, copied it to his documentation folder, and alerted the board. Patricia, this has crossed a line. We need to talk about personal security. Sandra, anyone else getting harassed at their actual homes? James, someone TP'd my trees last night. I assumed it was kids, but now I'm not so sure. Robert, my wife wants me to resign from the board. She's scared. That last message hit Marcus hard. This wasn't supposed to affect people's families. This wasn't supposed to get personal. But it had. Monday morning brought another surprise. An email from Howard Whitmore sent just to Marcus. Marcus, I need to talk to you alone, away from the board and away from Karen. Can you meet me for coffee tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. at the Starbucks on Henderson Road? This isn't a trick or a setup. I'm trying to find a way out of this mess before it destroys my family. Howard. Marcus showed the email to Jennifer Marsh before responding. It could be legitimate, Jennifer said. Howard's been the moderate voice in that family, or it could be a trap. He meets with you, Karen secretly records it and edits the conversation to make you look bad. So I shouldn't go. I didn't say that. If you go, keep it in public. Don't say anything you wouldn't want recorded, and maybe bring your own recording device just to be safe. Marcus responded to Howard, I'll meet you. But I'm letting my board president know, and I'll be recording our conversation for my own protection. If that's not acceptable, we can communicate through official channels. Howard's reply came within minutes. Understood. See you tomorrow. The Starbucks on Henderson Road was a busy location, morning commuters grabbing coffee before work, students camped out with laptops. Safe, public, neutral territory. Howard was already there when Marcus arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 coffees in front of him. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, stubble on his face, wrinkled shirt, dark circles under his eyes. Thanks for coming, Howard said as Marcus sat down. I got you a black coffee, hope that's okay. It's fine, what did you want to talk about? Howard took a breath. I want this to end, all of it. The fighting, the violations, the harassment. It's destroying my family and making everyone miserable. I agree. So have Karen pay the fine, apologize for violating the guest policy, and we all move on. She won't do that, you know she won't. Howard rubbed his face. Karen sees this as a matter of principle now. Backing down would mean admitting she was wrong, and she's psychologically incapable of that. That's not really my problem, Howard. I know, and I'm not asking you to compromise the rules. I'm asking. I don't know what I'm asking. Howard looked lost. Do you know what it's like living with someone who turns everything into World War III, who can't let anything go? Marcus thought about his ex-wife, who'd left him 3 years ago because he was too rigid and couldn't compromise. Maybe he understood more than Howard realized. I've been married to Karen for 27 years, Howard continued. I love her, but she exhausts me. Everything is a battle. The pool policy, the tree trimming, the neighborhood noise ordinance. It doesn't matter what it is, she finds a way to make it about persecution. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm asking you man to man, is there any way to de-escalate? Not by changing the rules or rescinding the fine, but, I don't know, some kind of face-saving option that lets Karen feel like she didn't completely lose. Marcus considered it. The bylaw amendment is coming up for a vote in September. It will clarify that 2 guests means 2 guests per household, not per resident. If it passes, and it will, that becomes the permanent rule. Karen can claim she fought for clarity and forced the board to formalize the policy. That's a win of sorts. And the fine stands, that's non-negotiable. She violated a rule, there are consequences. Howard nodded slowly. Okay, I can work with that. I'll talk to her, frame it as we push them to clarify the bylaws. We made our point, now it's time to move forward. Good luck with that. Yeah, Howard laughed bitterly. I'm going to need it. He stood to leave, then paused. Marcus, the banner on your tree, the harassment stuff, that's not me, and I don't think it's Karen directly, but she's surrounded herself with people who think they're defending her by attacking you. It's gotten out of control. Can you control them? I can try. But honestly, when you wind people up and point them at a target, sometimes they keep going even after you tell them to stop. After Howard left, Marcus sat in the coffee shop for a long time, thinking about what he'd said. Karen had created a movement, and movements were harder to stop than individuals. The harassment didn't stop. Over the next week, 3 more board members received anonymous threats via social media. Sandra found her car keyed in the grocery store parking lot. Someone posted Robert's home address on a HOA Hall of Shame website alongside accusations of corruption. The board held another emergency meeting, this time with Jennifer Marsh present via video. We need to consider whether this is worth it, Dorothy said. Her voice shook slightly. She'd received a threatening voicemail that morning. I didn't sign up to have my safety threatened. None of us did, Patricia agreed. But if we back down now, we're setting a precedent that threats and harassment work. Maybe they should work, Dorothy said. Maybe this is a sign we pushed too hard. Marcus felt his temper flare. So we let Karen Whitmore decide which rules matter. We let anyone who's willing to be nasty enough dictate community policy. We let people not feel threatened, Dorothy shot back. Then what's next? Marcus demanded. Someone doesn't like the lawn maintenance requirements, so they harass the board until we drop them. Someone wants to paint their house purple, so they threaten us until we approve it. Where does it end? It ends when people stop acting like fascists over pool rules. The room fell silent. Dorothy had never raised her voice before. Thomas cleared his throat. Dorothy, I understand you're frightened. We all are. But retreating in the face of intimidation doesn't make us safer. It just teaches people that intimidation works. Easy for you to say, Dorothy muttered. You're 74, what do you have to lose? My principles, Thomas said quietly, and that still matters to me. Jennifer intervened. Can I make a suggestion? Document everything, every threat, every incident of vandalism, every harassing message. Build a comprehensive file. Then take it to the police and request a criminal investigation into coordinated harassment. You might not get individual arrests, but it creates an official record and signals that you're taking this seriously. Will that stop them? Sandra asked. Maybe, maybe not, but it's better than doing nothing. The police report was filed on Wednesday. Detective Sarah Chen, no relation to Patricia, took their statements and reviewed the documentation. "This is clearly coordinated," she said, looking through the timeline Marcus had prepared. "But proving who's coordinating it is another matter. Anonymous social media accounts, unidentifiable vehicles on security footage, threats that stop just short of being specific enough to prosecute." "So there's nothing you can do?" Patricia asked. "I didn't say that. I'm opening an investigation. We'll monitor social media activity, track patterns, and if we can identify specific individuals making specific threats, we'll pursue charges. But you should know, this kind of online harassment campaign is difficult to prosecute unless someone does something stupid." "Stupid how?" Marcus asked. "Makes a direct threat, uses their real name, admits to something criminal on a recording. Most people who do this stuff know how to stay just on the legal side of the line. Still, having an official police investigation provided some comfort. And more importantly, it gave the board cover when residents asked why they weren't backing down. "We're not going to negotiate with people who threaten and harass," Patricia told the neighborhood Facebook group in an official post. "The police are investigating. The board will continue to enforce community rules fairly and consistently." The post got 127 reactions, 89 supportive, 38 angry. Public opinion was shifting, slowly but noticeably. The next general meeting was scheduled for September 12th. That's when the bylaw amendment would be voted on by the full membership. Karen spent the weeks leading up to it campaigning harder than most local politicians. She organized a petition against the amendment, 47 signatures. She created a website called Save Meadowbrook.com, full of dire warnings about HOA overreach. She even recorded a YouTube video explaining why residents should vote no. But her momentum had stalled. The news crews stopped showing up. The supportive emails slowed to a trickle. And most tellingly, several of her most vocal supporters quietly disappeared from the conversation. Marcus ran into one of them, a woman named Lisa who'd worn a "Support the Whitmores" shirt to the August meeting at the community pool in early September. "Hi, Lisa, how's your summer been?" She looked embarrassed. "Good. Look, Marcus, I owe you an apology. I got caught up in Karen's narrative without really understanding the details. I assumed the board was being unreasonable, but then I actually read the bylaws and looked at the documentation you posted. And Karen brought 14 people to the pool. That's not ambiguous, that's just excessive." She shook her head. "She convinced me this was about family rights, but it's really just about her wanting special treatment." "Why the change of heart?" "She called me last week, furious that I hadn't been posting on social media anymore. Started demanding I write negative reviews of board members on Google, post their addresses online, help organize protests. I realized I'd gotten involved with something way more aggressive than I'd signed up for." "I'm glad you figured it out." "Yeah, me too," Lisa paused. "For what it's worth, I think a lot of her other supporters are having similar realizations. The harassment stuff crossed a line. Normal people don't want to be part of that." September 12th arrived. The general meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. By 6:30, residents were already filing into the community center. This time there were no supporters in matching t-shirts, no reporters, no cameras. Just residents who wanted to vote on a bylaw amendment. Patricia called the meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. They moved through the standard agenda efficiently: financial reports, property updates, old business. Then they reached the main event. "The board has proposed Amendment 7.3A to clarify guest policy language," Patricia read from the prepared text. "The amendment states, each household may be accompanied by a maximum of 2 guests at community amenities. For purposes of this policy, household is defined as a single property address, regardless of the number of residents living at that address." She looked up. "The floor is now open for discussion." Karen was the first to the microphone. "I've opposed this amendment from the beginning, and I continue to oppose it. It's unnecessary, it's restrictive, and it's designed specifically to target my family. The existing language was fine. This clarification is just the board trying to formalize their biased interpretation." Marcus noticed her tone was different from last month, less fiery, more resigned, like she knew she was losing. Tom Brennan spoke next. I support the amendment. It makes the rules clear and unambiguous. That's good for everyone. A woman Marcus didn't know well spoke. I support it too. We have limited pool space. 2 guests per household is reasonable. Several others spoke, some for, some against, but the energy was different, calmer, more thoughtful. When discussion ended, Patricia called for the vote. All residents present may vote. This amendment requires a simple majority of those present. Please mark your ballots, yes to approve, no to reject. Paper ballots were distributed and collected. Sandra and James counted them at the front table while the room waited in tense silence. Finally, Sandra announced the results. Yes votes 97, no votes 34, the amendment passes. Applause filled the room, genuine, sustained applause. Karen sat motionless in her seat, her face unreadable. Patricia banged the gavel. Amendment 7.3A is hereby adopted and will take effect immediately. Thank you all for participating in this democratic process. As the meeting adjourned, Marcus found himself standing in the parking lot, feeling oddly deflated. They'd won. The amendment passed by a nearly 3-to-1 margin. The guest policy was now crystal clear. So why didn't it feel more satisfying? Patricia appeared beside him. We did it. Yeah. You don't sound happy. I'm just tired. Me too. She looked back at the community center. Dorothy's resigning from the board, by the way. She told me after the vote, says it's not worth the stress. Can't blame her. No, but it's sad. We lose good people because bad people make too much noise. They stood in the warm September evening, watching residents filter out to their cars. Most looked relieved. Some looked annoyed. Karen Whitmore got in her Lexus and drove away without speaking to anyone. Marcus, Patricia said quietly, do you think we did the right thing? Yes. Even with all the harassment, the threats, the division it caused. Yes, because if we hadn't, what would we be? Just people who wear titles but don't actually do the job. Patricia smiled slightly. Thomas was right, you are the wall. Then why does being the wall feel so lonely? She didn't have an answer for that. October brought an unexpected peace to Meadowbrook Commons. With the bylaw amendment passed and firmly in place, the pool drama faded into community memory. The guest logbook became just another mundane feature of daily life, like the recycling bins or the community bulletin board. Marcus noticed the difference immediately. Residents who'd been actively avoiding him, crossing the street, ducking into their houses when they saw him coming, began nodding in acknowledgement again. A few even stopped to chat about normal things, the upcoming Halloween party, whether the community should replace the aging playground equipment, the proposal to add food trucks to the summer concert series. The Whitmore family, meanwhile, had gone conspicuously quiet. Marcus still saw them around, Derek occasionally at the pool with exactly 2 friends, Howard trimming his hedge on Saturday mornings, Karen driving to and from work. But there were no more confrontations, no more violation reports filed by anonymous accounts, no more harassment campaigns. It was over. Except it wasn't, not quite. The September-October HOA newsletter went out on October 15th. Sandra had written a comprehensive update about the bylaw amendment, the successful vote, and what it meant for residents going forward. The tone was diplomatic, factual, forward-looking. Meadowbrook Commons has always been a community that values both individual freedoms and collective responsibility. The recently passed Amendment 7.3A clarifies our guest policy in a way that ensures fairness for all residents. We thank everyone who participated in the democratic process and look forward to continued cooperation in maintaining the high quality of life our community is known for. The newsletter also included the quarterly financial report, which Marcus had prepared. It showed something interesting. The community's overall expenses were down 18% compared to the same period last year, primarily due to reduced pool maintenance costs and fewer noise complaints requiring mediation. Marcus hadn't explicitly connected these savings to the guest policy enforcement, but the numbers spoke for themselves. That evening his phone rang. Unknown number, local area code. Against his better judgment, he answered, "Hello. Mr. Rivera, this is Bradford Chen, the attorney representing the Whitmore family." Marcus put the call on speaker and started his recording app. "Mr. Chen, what can I do for you?" I'm calling to inform you that my clients have decided to withdraw their complaint and legal claims against the HOA board. They acknowledge that the bylaw amendment process was conducted properly and that the new language provides the clarity they originally sought. Marcus blinked, surprised. That's good to hear. Additionally, my clients have agreed to pay the outstanding fine of $500 plus a $50 administrative fee for late payment. You should receive a check from them within the week. I appreciate you letting me know. Mr. Rivera, may I speak candidly for a moment? Sure. I've been practicing real estate law for 15 years. I've seen a lot of HOA disputes. Most of them are petty, both sides escalate unnecessarily, and everyone ends up worse off than when they started. Chen paused. This situation was no different. My clients felt aggrieved. Your board felt disrespected. Both sides dug in. Is there a point to this, Mr. Chen? The point is that you won. You enforced your rules, you survived the pressure campaign, and you got your bylaw amendment passed by a significant margin. You proved your point. So I'm asking, as someone who'd like to avoid further legal fees for my clients, can this be the end of it? Marcus thought about Karen's warning in the parking lot. You're going to win, and then you'll realize winning doesn't make you right. Mr. Chen, I never wanted a war. I wanted people to follow the rules. If your clients are willing to do that, then yes, this is the end of it. Goods, thank you. I'll be in touch regarding the payment. After the call ended, Marcus sat in his living room, feeling the weight of the past 4 months finally lift. They'd won. He texted the board group chat. Karen's lawyer just called. They're dropping all legal threats and paying the fine. It's over. The responses came quickly. Patricia, finally. Sandra, about damn time. James, drinks on me this weekend. Robert, my wife can finally relax. Thomas, well done, everyone. Democracy is messy, but it works. Only Dorothy didn't respond. She'd resigned from the board in late September and had stopped participating in the group chat entirely. Halloween in Meadowbrook Commons was traditionally a big event. The community organized a neighborhood-wide trick-or-treat evening with decorated houses, a costume contest at the community center, and a bonfire in the Commons area afterward. Marcus had always enjoyed it, the sense of community, kids running between houses, neighbors gathering around the fire pit to share cider and conversation. This year felt different. He decorated his front porch with the usual setup, carved pumpkins, fake spider webs, orange lights. But as Halloween evening approached, he felt oddly anxious about it. Would residents skip his house? Would there be awkwardness? Would some of Karen's remaining supporters use the event to make a statement? At 6 p.m., the official trick-or-treat hours began. Marcus positioned himself on his front porch with a bowl of full-size candy bars. He always went generous on Halloween. The first group of kids approached, 3 princesses and a dinosaur, parents trailing behind. Trick or treat. Marcus smiled, dropping candy into their bags. The parents nodded at him, friendly but not particularly warm. Normal. More groups came. Superheroes, witches, a kid dressed as a remarkably detailed dragon. Marcus handed out candy, complimented costumes, made small talk with parents. At 6:47 p.m., he saw Derek Whitmore walking up the sidewalk with his girlfriend, Brittany, and 2 young kids Marcus didn't recognize, probably Brittany's younger siblings. Marcus tensed. This would be the test. Derek climbed the porch steps. The kids chorused trick or treat. Marcus gave them candy, waiting for Derek to say something. Derek met his eyes. Hey. Hey. A long moment passed. Then Derek said, my mom's still mad, you know, but she's always mad about something. I heard you all dropped the legal stuff. Yeah, my dad put his foot down, said we couldn't afford to fight it anyway, and we'd already made our point. Derek shifted uncomfortably. Look, I was a dick. I knew we were pushing the limits. When my mom gets on a crusade, it's easier to go along than to fight her. I get it. Do you? Because I live with her. You have no idea how exhausting it is when she decides something is unfair. She'll bring it up every single day for months, years even. The pool thing, she's going to be bitter about it until the day she dies. Marcus almost laughed at the honesty. Why are you telling me this? Because I wanted you to know it was never personal from my side. I thought the guest limit was stupid, but I didn't hate you for enforcing it. My mom, though, she makes everything personal. Everything's an attack, everything's persecution. One of the kids tugged Derek's arm. Derek, I want more candy. We're going, buddy. Derek looked back at Marcus. Anyway, just wanted to say that. Have a good Halloween. You too. After they left, Mrs. Patterson appeared from next door, carrying her own bowl of candy. Well, she said, settling into the chair beside Marcus's. That was civil. You were listening. Of course I was listening. You think I'd miss the drama, she cackled. Derek's a good kid, weak but good. Corinne's influence on him is unfortunate. He's 22, old enough to make his own choices. Oh, honey, some people never escape their parents' influence, no matter how old they get, Mrs. Patterson sighed. I've been in this neighborhood longer than almost anyone. Corinne Whitmore isn't the first difficult person we've had, and she won't be the last, but she might be the loudest. Did I handle it wrong? Should I have compromised more, found a middle ground? Compromise with a bully just teaches them bullying works. You did fine, Marcus. The neighborhood is better for having rules that mean something. More trick-or-treaters came. The evening wore on. Marcus gave out candy until his bowl was empty, then joined the crowd gathering for the bonfire. Tom Brennan waved him over. Marcus, here I saved you a cider. The bonfire crackled in the central commons area, surrounded by families in camping chairs. Kids roasted marshmallows under their parents' supervision. Someone had brought a speaker playing classic Halloween songs. Marcus found himself surrounded by people who'd supported the board's position. Angela Kim, who'd sent that thank you email. Jessica Torres, who'd spoken in favor of enforcement at the meeting. Tom and several other longtime residents. We should have done this years ago, Angela said. Clarified the bylaws, enforced them consistently, would have saved everyone a lot of trouble. Hindsight, Tom said. Nobody wants to be the one to start a fight. Marcus here had the guts to actually do something. Or the stubbornness, Marcus said. They laughed. Patricia appeared with her husband and 2 teenage daughters. Marcus, come meet my family properly. Girls, this is Mr. Rivera, the man who survived your mother's dramatic summer. Her daughters rolled their eyes in perfect teenage synchronization. Mom, please. What, it was dramatic. We had news crews and everything. Marcus chatted with Patricia's family, then with Sandra and her partner, then with James and his wife. The bonfire gathering became exactly what it was supposed to be. A community coming together, drama forgotten, just people enjoying an autumn evening. Around 8:30, Marcus noticed Corinne and Howard Whitmore arriving at the edge of the bonfire area. They carried camping chairs and a bag of marshmallows. Corinne's face was carefully neutral, not friendly but not hostile either. She met Marcus's eyes across the fire for just a moment. No smile, no nod, just acknowledgement. Then she turned away and focused on setting up her chair. Howard caught Marcus's eye and gave a small, weary shrug, as if to say, "This is the best you're going to get." That was fine. Marcus didn't need Corinne's friendship. He just needed her to follow the same rules as everyone else. November brought a new issue to the forefront, the annual budget proposal. Marcus had been working on it since September, carefully projecting expenses and revenues for the coming year. One line item stood out. Pool maintenance costs were down significantly, but pool usage was actually up based on gate entry logs. The math was straightforward. Fewer people overcrowding the amenity meant less wear and tear, fewer complaints, and more efficient use of community resources. At the November board meeting, Marcus presented the budget. I'm proposing we reallocate some of the pool maintenance savings to other community improvements. Specifically, I'd like to see us invest in upgrading the playground equipment and resurfacing the tennis courts. Those have both been requested for years, Sandra noted. Can we afford it? We can if we use the savings from improved pool management. The numbers work out. Patricia studied the spreadsheet. So enforcing the guest policy didn't just reduce chaos, it actually saved the community money that we can now invest elsewhere. Exactly. Thomas smiled. That's going to make an excellent talking point at the annual meeting. Your board enforced rules fairly, reduced conflict, and found money for community improvements. That's good governance. The budget passed unanimously and would be presented to residents at the December annual meeting. Thanksgiving week was quiet. Marcus spent the holiday with his mother in Phoenix, grateful for the distance from Meadowbrook and its drama. When he returned Sunday evening, he found a card in his mailbox. Plain white envelope, no return address, his name handwritten on the front. Inside was a simple card, generic design from a drugstore, the kind with a mountain scene on the front. The handwritten message inside read, "Marcus, you were right and I was wrong. It took me a long time to admit that, even to myself. I let my ego and my anger turn a simple rule enforcement into a war, and I hurt people in the process. I'm not good at apologies. I'm not good at admitting mistakes. But I wanted you to know I understand now why you did what you did. You were protecting the community, not attacking my family. I paid the fine. I'll follow the rules going forward. And I hope someday we can exist in the same neighborhood without all this baggage." Karen. Marcus read it 3 times, trying to parse the sincerity. Was this genuine? A legal strategy? An attempt to manipulate him into letting his guard down? He called Patricia. "I just got an apology card from Karen Whitmore. So did I and Sandra, and I think most of the board. Do you think it's real?" "Does it matter?" Patricia asked. "She paid the fine, she's following the rules. Whether the apology is sincere or strategic, the outcome is the same." "I guess that's true. Marcus, let me ask you something. What would make you feel like this was actually resolved? What do you need from her?" He thought about it. "Nothing. I just need her to be a normal resident who follows normal rules." "Then accept the apology at face value and move forward. Holding grudges doesn't help anyone." The December annual meeting was the last big event of the year. Unlike general meetings, the annual meeting included board elections, budget approval, and a review of the year's accomplishments and challenges. Marcus arrived early to help set up chairs. The community center's main hall felt familiar now. He'd spent so much time there over the past months. Residents filed in at a normal pace. No crush of angry supporters, no media presence, just the usual 50 or so residents who bothered to show up to annual meetings. The Whitmore family arrived together, Karen, Howard, and Derek. They sat in the middle section, neither front row confrontational nor back row avoidant. Strategic positioning. Patricia called the meeting to order at 7 p.m. sharp. The agenda moved through smoothly. Reading of minutes, financial report, old business, new business. Marcus presented the budget, highlighting the cost savings and proposed improvements. A resident raised her hand. "Is it true that the guest policy enforcement led to these savings?" "Partially," Marcus answered honestly. "Reduced overcrowding means less wear on facilities, fewer noise complaints requiring intervention, and more efficient use of resources. But it's not the only factor. We also renegotiated some vendor contracts and refinanced our insurance policy." "Still," the resident said, "it's nice to see that enforcing rules actually benefits everyone, not just the people who complain about rule breakers." Several people nodded in agreement. The budget passed with only 3 dissenting votes. Then came board elections. Dorothy had resigned, creating 1 vacancy. Thomas had decided to step down after serving 6 years, 2 open seats. Nominations were called. 2 residents stepped forward, both longtime homeowners with no connection to the pool drama. Both gave brief speeches about wanting to serve the community. Both seemed reasonable and competent. The vote was conducted by paper ballot. The new members were elected without controversy. As the meeting moved to closing remarks, Karen Whitmore raised her hand. "Mrs. Whitmore," Patricia acknowledged, "you have the floor." Karen stood. Marcus braced himself for another attack. Instead, she said, "I want to thank the board for their service this year. I know it wasn't easy, especially given the conflicts that arose. I've learned a lot about how community governance works, and I have a new appreciation for the challenges you face." The room was silent, everyone holding their breath. Karen continued, "I still think the guest policy could be more flexible, but I understand why it exists, and I'll follow it going forward. I hope we can all move into next year with fresh perspective and renewed commitment to making Meadowbrook Commons a great place to live." She sat down. Patricia looked stunned. "Thank you, Mrs. Whitmore. Yes, thank you." The meeting adjourned at 8:42 p.m. As people filed out, Marcus found himself face-to-face with Karen in the parking lot. "That was a nice speech," he said carefully. It was honest, Karen replied. Look, I'm not going to pretend we're friends, but I'm done fighting. Fighting is exhausting. Yeah, it is. Howard said I should tell you. He talked to Derek, made him understand that part of being an adult is accepting that you don't always get what you want. Derek's agreed to be more responsible about how he uses the pool. I appreciate that. Karen hesitated, then said, I've been thinking about what you said that night after the big meeting, about how you chose this community because you wanted rules and structure. I chose it for the same reasons. I just somehow convinced myself that the rules should apply to everyone else more than they applied to me. That's a pretty big realization. Yeah, well, several $1,000s in lawyer fees and a lot of sleepless nights will do that to you. She managed a small smile. I'm going to try to be a better neighbor. No promises that I'll suddenly become easy to deal with. Ask Howard, I'm constitutionally incapable of that, but I'll try. That's all any of us can do. She walked to her car. Howard, waiting by the passenger door, caught Marcus's eye and mouthed, "Thank you." Marcus stood in the parking lot as cars pulled away, watching his community settle back into its normal rhythm. Christmas lights went up throughout Meadowbrook Commons in mid-December. The HOA had organized a decorating contest. Nothing mandatory, just a fun community activity with small prizes for different categories. Marcus put up his usual tasteful display. White lights on the porch railing, a wreath on the door, a small lit tree visible through his front window. Mrs. Patterson went all out. As usual, her house looked like Santa's workshop had exploded. Inflatable reindeer, projected snowflakes, synchronized light show, the works. You're going to get the most festive award again, Marcus told her while helping to untangle an extension cord. Of course I am, dear. That's because I understand that Christmas isn't about tasteful, it's about joy. She gestured at his minimalist display. Your lights are very pretty, but they don't exactly scream holiday spirit. They scream, I remembered to decorate without breaking my neck on a ladder. She laughed, fair enough. On December 23rd, the community held its annual holiday party in the community center. Potluck dinner, gift exchange, carols singing, the kind of wholesome suburban tradition that Marcus normally found slightly corny but secretly enjoyed. The party was packed. Families with kids, elderly couples, young professionals, everyone mingling and eating too much casserole. Marcus found himself in line for drinks behind Howard Whitmore. Marcus, Howard said, how are you? Good, you? Better, Karen's been. Calmer. I think she finally accepted that she can't control everything. He lowered his voice. She made me swear not to bring up the pool stuff at this party. She doesn't want to be that person anymore. That's progress. It is, you know what the funny thing is. She's actually happier now that she's let it go. Turns out holding grudges is stressful. Imagine that. They got their drinks and drifted to different parts of the room. Marcus ended up in a corner with Tom, Patricia, and a few other residents, talking about the upcoming year. New board members seem solid, Tom said. Think they'll be less dramatic than this year. God, I hope so, Patricia said. I'm not cut out for this much excitement. None of us are, Marcus agreed, but we survived it. Did we, though? Patricia gestured around the room. Look at this. Everyone's here talking, laughing, acting like nothing happened. But 6 months ago, this community was at war with itself. How do we just move on? Because people are remarkably good at forgetting, Tom said. Give it another 6 months, and the pool drama will be a funny story we tell at parties. Remember when Karen Whitmore tried to bring 15 people to the pool? Is that healthy, though? Patricia pressed. To just forget and move on. Marcus considered it. I think it's necessary. We can't function as a community if we're constantly relitigating past conflicts. At some point, you have to accept that the fight is over, learn what you can from it, and focus on the future. Very philosophical, Tom teased. You've been thinking about this a lot. I've had time to think. 4 months of constant stress gives you perspective. Across the room, Marcus saw Karen Whitmore laughing with a group of neighbors. She looked relaxed in a way he hadn't seen since this all started. Derek was nearby with Brittany, both of them helping serve food to the kids' table. Normal, the Whitmores looked normal. Maybe that was the real victory, not proving a point or winning an argument, but getting back to a place where everyone could just exist in the same space without drama. New Year's Eve came quietly. Marcus spent it at home, watching the ball drop on TV with a glass of whiskey, reflecting on the strangest year he'd had in a long time. He thought about the first time he'd seen Derek and his friends hauling coolers to the pool at 6 a.m. That moment seemed so small in retrospect, just an annoyance, a rule violation, nothing world-shaking. But it had become so much more. A test of principles, a lesson in community governance, a reminder that even small things matter when they're about fairness and respect for shared spaces. His phone buzzed at 11:47 p.m., a text from Patricia. "Happy almost New Year. Thanks for being the stubborn wall when we needed one. Here's to a boring 2026. Marcus smiled and replied, "I'll drink to that." At midnight, fireworks erupted somewhere in the neighborhood, probably Tom's house. He always went big on New Year's. Marcus stood on his back porch, watching the sky light up with color, feeling the cold December air on his face. In the distance, he could hear neighbors celebrating. Music, laughter, the sound of a community that had survived its conflict and come out intact on the other side. Not perfect, not healed completely, but intact. That was enough. January brought the usual suburban rhythms. People taking down Christmas decorations, hitting the gym with renewed New Year's resolutions, complaining about the cold. The pool sat empty and covered for winter, waiting for spring. The guest logbook remained chained to the fence, a quiet reminder of the summer's battles. Marcus drove past it one morning on his way to work and felt nothing. No anger, no vindication, no lingering stress. Just mild satisfaction that the system was in place and working. In February, he ran into Angela Kim at the grocery store. She had her 2 kids with her, both excited about Valentine's Day. "Marcus, I've been meaning to tell you. I applied to join the HOA board. There's going to be an opening in March when James moves out of state." "That's great, you'd be perfect for it." "I hope so. I figured if I'm going to complain about how things are run, I should step up and help run them." She paused. "You inspired that, watching you deal with all that craziness last year. You